My wife, 37-year-old female, and I, 39-year-old male, built a new home and moved into a really nice neighborhood about 7 months ago. She is a stay-at-home mom. We have 3 kids. She is white and I'm Mexican. We were both born in Dallas, Texas. We are both from the same suburb and we met after high school. When we first got together, she was 17 and I was 19. Her mom and dad kicked her out because they didn't want her to date someone of a different race. It's all good now. Her parents admitted they were wrong. And now I love her parents and they love me and our children. At that time, I was still living with my parents, had my own job, car, and paid rent. When my parents heard that she got kicked out, they offered for her to move in with us rent-free. My mother and father loved her and took her in as one of their own. I have 3 sisters who were all married at the time, and we were always hanging out with my family at one of my sister's houses or my parents' house. We were always together and everyone got along. As time went by, I started to make more money and we were able to buy our first house together. We finally moved out after living with my parents for almost 4 years. We had our first child, a son, a year later, which is when her parents finally accepted me, and then our twin daughters 5 years after that. Right before our twins were born, I landed a great job that made much more money than we had been making. I was able to buy a nice house in a country club where we lived for another 5 years. After those 5 years, I landed another job in the same industry, but with a much higher salary. That job allowed us to build a brand new home and move to a very nice community with better schools. We just moved in about 7 months ago. This is a pretty wealthy community, and homes here are valued at $1 million plus. The reason I bring all of that up is because I started to notice that my wife started to change towards my family when I started to make more money. I should make it known also that the town we lived in where we met was a small town with low to middle income families. Her family was better off than mine, and though they weren't wealthy, they were better off than my family. My parents' house was very small and modest. I didn't grow up with much, and we were relatively poor when I was a kid. For the past 2 years, she completely changed. She acts like she doesn't want our children to hang out with their cousins, my sister's kids. She absolutely hates it when they come over. As a result, I can't invite my family over anymore without her turning her nose up at it. She gets very upset when I tell her I want them to come over on the weekends to hang out like we used to. She barely wants my parents to come over, and when they do come over, she is very standoffish and rude. It's very embarrassing. She would tell me that she just wears her heart on her sleeve, and that's why she acts the way she acts. My parents and sisters still live in that same little town where my wife and I met, and they still live in their small, modest homes. They don't have high-paying jobs. I've been very blessed with my jobs, and I'm able to provide my wife and kids with more than anyone thought I could, even myself. I'm pretty sure I make more than her parents and all of her siblings as well. The only reason I bring that up is because she feels like we can only hang out with her family. She acts like her family is better than mine. She's okay with them coming over as much as they want, and our kids can hang out with her sister's kids. It's like she thinks her family is just better. I still consider myself the same person that I was back then, and I was taught to treat people with respect always, no matter who they are. But my wife acts like she's better than everyone now. Like she's better than my family. And she acts like our kids can't hang out with my sister's kids because they might be bad influences. My sister's kids are all good kids, by the way. She has even stopped talking to her childhood best friend from the same town where we are both from. My mom passed away suddenly last month, and I was devastated. She was very supportive and loving to my family for about a week after her death, and then she went right back to her normal, rude self. My mom was cremated, so we had her celebration of life just this past Friday. I wanted all of my family to come to our house after my mother's service since I have the biggest house out of all of my siblings. And I knew I could host that many people since some relatives were coming in from out of town. I was already nervous about what she was going to say when I told her my plans. As soon as I did, she got very angry. She said absolutely not, and that we should do whatever we're doing at one of my other sisters' houses. I was on a business trip when I told her about me wanting my family to come over, so we were primarily arguing over the phone and via text. I finally told her that I thought she was being heartless and insensitive about the whole situation. After she insisted several times that my family was not coming over, I finally put my foot down and told her that I wasn't asking her, but that I was telling her we were going to do it at my house. She was furious. Fast forward to the day of the service, and she wouldn't talk to me all day. I spent most of the day preparing and cleaning our home to get it ready for our guests, and she hardly helped me do anything. She hugged me at the end of the service that evening, but I think it was simply for show, because she knew other people were looking. After the service, everyone came to our home. I was walking around the whole time attending to people and making sure everyone had what they needed. Every time I walked by my wife, she gave me a dirty look. It was embarrassing because I didn't want anyone to notice her giving me those looks. I was afraid it would make people feel awkward and want to leave. I ignored her and didn't make eye contact for the rest of the night. As it got later, most people started leaving, but a few of my close cousins and my sisters stayed. We were all hanging outside in my back patio, having drinks and enjoying being with each other. She, of course, made it known that she was going to bed. She kept texting me and telling me to be quiet and that no one was to stay the night. I will admit, we stayed up late. It was about 3 a.m. My children had gone to bed upstairs at like 11, as well as her. But we were outside. My kids were not being bothered. She was not being bothered. No one was being very loud, and as I said, it was just family. And it was a Friday night. She doesn't work, and my kids had no school the next day. All of a sudden, she comes out of our bedroom and just awkwardly stares at everyone from the doorway. It made everyone feel uncomfortable, so everyone got the hint and left. The whole time, she just stood there with her arms crossed, tapping her foot. It was so awkward and embarrassing. The next morning, I told her she was a childish, horrible person. I still haven't spoken to her. And it's now Sunday. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Firstly, my sincere condolences for your loss. Your mother sounds like an absolutely lovely person. The same cannot be said of your wife. She is a total snob and it's time to make a stand. Tell her she is making your life miserable with her horrible attitude toward your family. And if she wants this marriage to thrive, she needs to come with you to relationship therapy. This can't continue. Something has to give, and hopefully it won't be your marriage. But if you don't address this now, your kids will grow up to be insufferable snobs too. You've let it go on for too long as it is. Not the idiot. Comment 2. Not the idiot. As much as I hate to pull the trigger on this marriage, I'd say it's over. Your wife has changed for the worse. Maybe she always was this entitled, heartless, arrogant woman, but getting kicked out by her family clipped her wings temporarily. Now she's like this, and it doesn't look like she's about to change. Finish this, dude. Divorce and keep your morality intact. Because being with her, catering to her demands to keep the peace, is making you be on the same shitty path she is on. Also, think of how your children will turn out if she is around to teach them what she believes in. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my previous post. It's been a tough couple of weeks since then, and I wanted to give you all an update on what's been happening. After the incident at my mother's celebration of life, things between my wife and I have only gotten worse. We barely spoke for the first few days, and when we did, it was just arguing. She kept insisting that my family was a bad influence on our kids and that we needed to distance ourselves from them. I tried to reason with her, but she wouldn't budge. About a week after the celebration, I found out that she had been talking to her parents about what happened. They apparently agreed with her and thought that my family was beneath us. I was furious when I found out. I confronted her about it, and we had a huge fight. She accused me of not supporting her and always taking my family's side. I told her that she was being ridiculous, and that my family had always been there for us, even when her own parents had turned their backs on her. Things came to a head a few days later when I found out that she had been secretly planning a trip to visit her parents with our kids. She hadn't even bothered to tell me about it. When I confronted her, she said that she needed a break from everything and that she wanted our kids to spend more time with her family. I lost it at that point. I told her that she was being selfish and that she couldn't just take our kids away from me like that. We ended up having a huge argument, and she stormed out of the house with the kids. I tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. She said that she needed some time to think and that she would be back in a few days. It's been almost a week since then, and I haven't heard from her. I've tried calling and texting, but she won't respond. I'm starting to get really worried. I never thought that things would get this bad between us. I've been doing a lot of thinking over the past few days, and I've started to realize that maybe there were some signs that I missed. Looking back, I can see that my wife has always been a bit insecure about her background. She grew up in a family that was better off than mine, but she always felt like she didn't quite fit in with them. When we first started dating, she would sometimes make comments about how my family was different from hers. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now I wonder if that was the start of her resentment towards them. I also think that maybe I didn't do enough to make her feel like she was a part of my family. I was always close with my siblings and parents, and I just assumed that she would naturally become a part of that. But maybe I should have made more of an effort to include her and make her feel like she belonged. I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm hoping that she'll come back and we can work things out, but I'm not sure if that's possible at this point. I love her and our kids more than anything, but I don't know if I can keep living like this. Anyway, thanks for listening. It helps to be able to talk about this stuff, even if it's just to a bunch of strangers on the internet. I'll try to keep you all updated if anything changes. Am I the idiot for not pleading my stepdaughter's case to my husband after she mocked his beliefs? My 31-year-old husband of 9 years was left by his ex-wife after 5 years of marriage 13 years ago. She left my stepdaughter behind and claimed that my husband and his family were tarnishing their daughter with LDS ideology and that she didn't have the strength to deal with his family's money. She also started a conspiracy theory that my husband's family knew, through marriage, business partnerships, or by blood, a lot of the lawyers, judges, cops in the area, which is completely ludicrous. Because my husband didn't want her to disrupt the daughter who she willingly abandoned, my husband sent her a final lump sum payment after his alimony to her was ended, and she agreed to stop trying to angrily disrupt his family's lives via tantrums or slander. She still had the opportunity to demand regular visitation, to arrange something semi-regular for holidays. The best she could do was a few birthday cards and friending, following Veronica on social media once she got a Facebook and Instagram. My husband and I have our own 2 sons, 9 and 4. Veronica, now 18, has a very argumentative, self-righteous personality. It's been hard since I met her to have any conversations with her, and the only way to peace was avoidance. At some point, I decided to defer to my husband when he said it was no use talking to somebody who answers everything with pure emotion, and he told me to stop playing the game of trying to please Veronica and to just not engage when I suspect she's moody. So Veronica began claiming that my husband's policy of not engaging was him ignoring her. As she became a teen, she'd start parroting her birth mom's view and would say she hated my husband's religious values. In response, we decided to not engage and just focus on providing a happy childhood for our sons. She is now a legal adult who just graduated high school. The last straw came when my husband complained about a business partner being annoying at dinner. She rolled her eyes and said, "Then just give up the property you own with him for free. It's just money. I'd never pretend to like somebody I didn't just for money. I'd just quit if I didn't like my coworkers, not complain about it all the time." I think that mockery of my husband made him say enough. He told me afterwards how angry he was at her. I'm sure some might argue my husband is overreacting and holds grudges he shouldn't, but the disrespect is clear. Long story short, my husband asked Veronica to leave, and when she refused, he wanted to file to evict. In response, she texted him she's leaving, and she'll do fine without him, and gave him her house keys, saying, "I hope you are happy." My husband asks over text if she's voluntarily vacating, and she replies, "Call it what you want. I'm leaving." She then comes back days later, begging for forgiveness. My husband refuses to let her back in and asked if I had any input on this, which I stayed silent on since he was aggravated. Her mom gets involved, finds me on Instagram, and asks me if my son was in her place, if I would beg my husband to let him back in even if my husband got angry at me. I told her that was a moot point. Her mom is mad that I refused to do anything to plead her case. I reply that why should I stick my neck out for her child when she has never done so in any meaningful way? I know I'd never abandon my sons ever, even in the face of imminent physical danger to myself. Am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You're the idiot. So your husband's ex-wife ran away fast from him because she couldn't handle his religious cult, also known as misogyny. And she knew she had no way to fight for custody. And she lied about his family being connected. Yet he still paid her off to silence her. And when his daughter, whose mom had just left, was emotional about it, his response was to simply ignore her? Because women's rights? You're the idiot for defending a man like this. And it makes it even worse that you've given him 2 little boys to mold into misogynistic tyrants just like him. Comment 2. Boy, your husband is nothing if not predictable. He's a truly terrible person who completely failed his child. I bet he pretends to be the best even in church every week. His cult friends probably even believe that, which reinforces his toxic belief that he is never wrong. Your husband is nothing. He just wears a human shell in public. Why isn't his child preparing to leave for college? Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last post and a lot has happened in the past 2 weeks. I'll try to fill you in on everything. After Veronica left, things were tense around the house. My husband was still angry about the whole situation, and I could tell he was struggling with his decision to not let her back in. He kept questioning if he had done the right thing and if he was being too harsh. I tried to be supportive and reassure him that he had every right to set boundaries, but I could see the guilt weighing on him. A few days after Veronica left, her mom reached out to me again. She said she had been talking to Veronica and that she was really struggling. She begged me to talk to my husband and convince him to let Veronica come back home. I told her I couldn't do that, but I did agree to meet up with Veronica and see how she was doing. When I met up with Veronica, I could see the toll this was taking on her. She looked exhausted and like she hadn't been eating or sleeping well. She broke down crying and told me how much she regretted what she had said to her dad. She said she knew she had been disrespectful and that she was sorry. She begged me to talk to my husband and convince him to let her come back home. I told her I would talk to my husband, but I couldn't make any promises. When I brought it up to him, he was still hesitant. He said he didn't want to send the message that she could just disrespect him and then come back like nothing had happened, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. He missed his daughter, and he was worried about her. After a lot of discussion, we decided to let Veronica come back home on a trial basis. We set some clear boundaries and expectations, including that she needed to be respectful and contribute to the household. She agreed to the terms and moved back in. Things were okay for a few days, but then the tension started to build again. Veronica was trying to be on her best behavior, but I could see the resentment bubbling under the surface. She would make little comments here and there about how she felt like she was walking on eggshells, and how unfair it was that she had to follow all these rules. Then, about a week after she moved back in, everything blew up. My husband and Veronica got into a huge argument about her attitude and behavior. She accused him of being too controlling and not understanding her. He accused her of being ungrateful and disrespectful. It was a mess. In the heat of the moment, my husband told Veronica that if she couldn't follow the rules and be respectful, then she needed to leave. Veronica stormed out of the house, and we haven't heard from her since. I've been trying to reach out to her, but she won't respond to my calls or texts. Her mom is furious with us and keeps saying we've abandoned Veronica just like she did. I don't know what to do. I feel like we've tried everything to make this work, but nothing seems to be enough. Looking back, I can't help but wonder if we made a mistake letting Veronica come back home. Maybe we should have stuck to our guns and not given in to the pressure from her mom. But at the same time, I know my husband was just trying to do what he thought was best for his daughter. I keep thinking about my own childhood and how different it was from Veronica's. My parents were always there for me, no matter what. They never would have abandoned me the way Veronica's mom did. I can't imagine how hard that must have been for her growing up, but at the same time, I know that doesn't excuse her behavior. She's an adult now, and she needs to take responsibility for her actions. I just wish I knew how to help her see that. Anyway, that's where things stand now. I don't know what's going to happen next or how this is all going to play out. All I can do is be there for my husband and our sons and hope that somehow, some way, we can find a way to move forward. Thanks for reading and for all your support. It means a lot to have a place to vent and share what's been going on. Am I the idiot for refusing to take care of our toddler after my husband complained about my lack of contribution? I, 36-year-old female, and my husband, 34-year-old male, have a 2-year-old, and I am currently 7 months pregnant. My husband constantly complains that he works all day and has to come home and work more. He is always complaining that he never gets a break. The thing is, neither do I, but I feel like that is just part of having young kids. I also have an 18-year-old. My husband and I met when he was 7, so he missed the young years. He has constantly had this theme of me not doing anything. The house is a cluttered mess. I'm not disputing that. But the clothes don't magically jump in the closet, the toddler doesn't care for himself, the food doesn't jump in the house, the bills don't pay themselves. I'm exhausted and have to schedule showers, so it's really hard to hear that I don't do anything. It is also hard for me to hear him say he does everything. I am in a master's program, and there are many days where I will tell him I have an assignment due, and he will tell me that he will help when he gets home, but he falls asleep within 2 hours. He works 4 10-hour days at a mine. The drive is about an hour. I know he has long days. Lately, he has been talking again about how depressed he is and how I'm so difficult to live with. I asked for an example of how I'm difficult, and he brought up how the other day I asked him if he wanted to make dinner after he had just got off work. He only worked half a day, he swears he loves to cook, and I feel like he could have just said no and not made it sound like I'm hurtful. It feels to me like he just wants to be negative because the talk is always about what I didn't do and never what I did do. I had told him before that if he was going to keep saying I did nothing, I was going to actually do nothing. So today, when he got home, I did nothing. He kept asking me to get our toddler so he could sleep, and I refused. I reminded him that he said I did nothing and he did everything, and that this is what that really looks like. He told me as the stay-at-home mom, this is my job. I told him I disagreed, that my job was to watch the kid while he worked and that I should be off full-time mom mode when he was off. He told me that my time to rest was on his days off. I reminded him that I am often catching up on things like homework, laundry, washing my own butt. He told me those were choices and I had the option to rest. So now I am refusing to take the toddler so he can sleep. He said that I was exactly as crazy as he has been saying, and that in response to him telling me that I was harming him, I was causing further harm to make a point. He said if I continued, he would divorce me. I told him I would be posting this to get other points of view, and he said to make sure I tell everyone it's 9:45 p.m. and he has to be up at 3 a.m. Am I the idiot for not taking my toddler so my husband could sleep for work because I am fed up with him saying I do nothing? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Show him the post where the husband said his wife did nothing. The wife left, and then the husband was forced to do everything on his own. When that happened, he realized how awful it was and tried to get the wife back. But the wife refused. She refused because she had more time for herself without the husband. You need to realize your husband is also a child since you are taking care of his needs as well. Time to put all that into perspective. Comment 2. Not the idiot. A stay-at-home mom is also the family's event coordinator, cook, bookkeeper, teacher, nurse, chauffeur, housekeeper, and therapist. You don't get a scheduled lunch break where no one can bother you. You don't get a moment alone in the car to think or listen to music on the way to work. You don't get to clock out. And instead of being a supportive team player, this guy is bitching at you and telling you you're not enough. Ew. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my update. It's been a week since my last post, and things have only gotten worse between my husband and me. The day after our argument about me not taking care of our toddler so he could sleep, I woke up to find him already gone for work. He didn't even say goodbye or wake me up. I felt hurt and confused, wondering if he was still angry about the previous night. As the day went on, I tried to focus on taking care of our son and catching up on some homework for my master's program. But I couldn't shake the feeling of unease in the pit of my stomach. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a message from my husband, but there was nothing. Later that evening, when he finally got home from work, the tension between us was evident. He barely acknowledged me as he walked in the door, heading straight for the bedroom. I followed him, trying to talk things out, but he just brushed me off, saying he was too tired to deal with me. Over the next few days, the silent treatment continued. My husband would leave for work early in the morning and come home late at night, avoiding any interaction with me. I tried to give him space, focusing on taking care of our son and the household duties, but the stress was starting to take its toll. On the 4th day, I finally broke down and confronted him. I told him that I couldn't handle the silent treatment anymore and that we needed to talk things out. But instead of listening, he exploded, accusing me of being selfish and not understanding how hard he works. He brought up an incident from a few years ago before we were married, when I had forgotten to pick him up from work because I was out with friends. I had apologized profusely at the time, but he had never really forgiven me. Now he was using it as ammunition, saying that I had always been unreliable and that he couldn't count on me. I was stunned. I had no idea he had been harboring this resentment for so long. I tried to explain that I had changed since then, that I was doing my best to be a good wife and mother, but he wasn't having it. He said that he was tired of my excuses and that he didn't know if he could do this anymore. The argument escalated, with both of us saying things we didn't mean. I accused him of not appreciating all the work I do at home, and he accused me of being lazy and ungrateful. It got to the point where our son started crying, scared by all the yelling. That's when my husband dropped a news. He said that he had been considering leaving me for a while now, that he wasn't happy in our marriage. He said that he had been talking to a coworker, a woman, who understood him better than I ever could. I was devastated. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I begged him to reconsider, to give our marriage another chance, but he said that he needed some time to think things over. He packed a bag and left, saying that he would be staying with a friend for a few days. I was left alone with our son, feeling like my world had just been turned upside down. I didn't know what to do or where to turn. I tried calling my husband, but he wouldn't answer his phone. I even reached out to his coworker, the woman he had mentioned, but she claimed not to know what I was talking about. As the days passed, I struggled to keep it together for our son's sake. I tried to maintain some sense of normalcy, but it was hard when everything felt like it was falling apart. I couldn't focus on my homework or anything else, my mind constantly racing with worst-case scenarios. Finally, after a week, my husband came home. But instead of the reconciliation I had been hoping for, he handed me divorce papers. He said that he had made up his mind and that he wanted to end our marriage. He said that he would be moving out and that we would need to figure out custody arrangements for our son. I was in shock. I couldn't believe that this was happening, that the man I had loved for so long was giving up on us. I tried to reason with him, to remind him of all the good times we had shared, but he was resolute. He said that he couldn't be happy with me anymore and that he needed to move on. So now, here I am, 7 months pregnant and facing the prospect of being a single mother to 2 young children. I don't know how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to manage everything on my own. But I know that I have to be strong for my kids, that I have to find a way to keep going. I'm still trying to process everything that's happened, to make sense of how we got to this point. I know that I'm not blameless, that there were things I could have done differently, but I also know that I didn't deserve this, that I didn't deserve to be abandoned by the man I loved. I'm not sure what the future holds for me and my children, but I know that I have to keep fighting. I have to believe that there's a way through this, that there's still hope for happiness on the other side. It's not going to be easy, but I'm determined to make it work, to be the best mother I can be. Thanks for listening, everyone. I appreciate all the support and kind words from my last post. I know I'm going to need all the help I can get in the days and weeks ahead. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!